Our next speaker is a service dog graduate, I'm going to mess this up, Louis Pingarron and his partner Shield. Louis joined the United States Navy in 1990 immediately after graduating high school when he was 18 years old. And within a year of enlisting, he worked on the flight deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln CVN72 and the Air Anti-Submarine Squadron VS-29 in the Persian Gulf during the Operation Desert Storm. His tour during the conflict took him to Saudi Arabia and evacuation of Subic Bay during the eruption of Mount Pinatubo. In his 3-year enlistment, he spent a year and 10 months deployed overseas. Everybody, please give a standing ovation and a warm welcome to one of the nation's finest heroes. Louise, please come up.
Just had to park my service dog. I had prepared some things to say, but I was very moved and overwhelmed in a good way, not in the veteran way, by the people that I spoke to and shared this weekend with. And you know, we can argue all day about whether or not we're in some dark times, but we can all agree that these are weird times. And to be around, you know, I haven't witnessed a group this big since I was in the military that is working toward a common goal. And to see this many people working towards something good has really inspired me to want to be up here and want to take things that 3 years ago, before I met this gal, would have been impossible for me. I'm eternally grateful for Russ and Zach and everybody at GDA TLC for just really helping me to get my life back. You know, I joined the Navy after high school. I was 18 years old. It was a time of peace in 1990, and 2 weeks later, things started heating up in the Middle East, and Desert Shield became a thing. I was still in boot camp. The big joke in boot camp was, haha, you're going to Kuwait. Well, January 15, which was midnight of the 14th, 1991, Desert Shield became Desert Storm, and we were on the way. I was still 18. I was out there during most of the conflict. Spent time in Persian Gulf, Kuwait, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and the area known as the Theater of Operations. And I had the time of my life, but I also saw the things that a lot of people experience and witness during wartime. And it took a long time to come home and literally decades and accept that I wasn't the same, and that with the same speed and quickness that I had to grow up and become a maker of war, I came home and realized that I lost something, and that something was me. And over the years, I started to experience nightmares, hypervigilance, anxiety, depression, and all the things that come with that. When you go to the Veterans Administration, I just had a physical a couple weeks ago, my annual, and right when you're checking in, they ask you 3 questions. Number 1, how's your living arrangement? Are you worried that you're gonna end up homeless? There's a lot of homeless veterans out there, so I have to ponder that. And, you know, I give them my answer, no, I'm not homeless yet. And then they say, are you depressed? Well, shit, you just asked me if I was worried about being homeless. Number 3, do you have any thoughts of suicide or suicidal ideations? Well, let's go down the list. You asked me if I was worried about being homeless, then you asked me if I was depressed. You mix those up and, you know, 2 + 2 =, right? Well, Christmas, a little while ago, I asked my girlfriend at the time, Ciara, to marry me, and she had stars in her eyes, and she said, "Why, yes." And and the next day, after she got over the initial shock, she said, "Okay, here's a list of stuff you're gonna need to do if you want me to go through with this marriage. Otherwise, it's so long, turkey." Number one, I had to start getting help for my problems that were service-related. I had to get therapy. I had to start doing group counseling, and my dog Sheriff died in August of 2018, and I stopped leaving the house as I was starting to undergo all of this therapy and medication and all the things that are part of veteran life. All you vets out there know what I'm talking about. I decided I wanted a puppy to start just living and feeling something other than going to work and sitting on the couch. My wife said, "You need a service dog." I started down that path. My friend Dan Halsey, Army veteran, received a dog through TLC at the time, and I met Aaron, the trainer, at one of the trainings at Dan's house, and I started the application process. And for the first time in my life, I had to face the problems that I created for myself, trying to avoid the everlasting list of things that I couldn't deal with in my life. Going out in public, doing normal, regular, everyday things, and that list was long. And that application was pretty much a list of the things I had to work on. We underwent the process. I went to dog school, and on the first day I met Sheil. I had met her before, and I also went to her graduation from the Camp Pendleton Brig. She was raised in the prison training program. And all of a sudden, we're thrust into this dorm room in Sylmar at this beautiful facility, and it's just me and her. And the first night, so when I showed up to dog school in 2020, January, the only thing I knew about Alexa is that she had a sister named Siri. Alexa was kind enough to wake me up with a very loud, screechy alarm that sounded like general quarters on board the aircraft carrier at somewhere around 4 in the morning. And boy, did it send me for a loop. And this dog jumped into bed with me. And then they made me go to the airport. And then they made me go to the mall. Excuse me. And then I realized, wow, the malls are really empty during the day. I hadn't been to a mall since high school. They still have Sbarros, by the way. The day I graduated, Russ gave me a folded flag in a box that said, "Thank you for your service," and a little plaque on the back. And my heart swelled and exploded, kind of like the Grinch. And that to me was a gesture that I never really felt. And thank you. And thank you, Russ, for the flag. And in between that hour of crying and just really feeling like, wow, I'm finally home, I got out in 1993 now. This was 2020. So you can imagine the decades of relief that I had started to feel. And so I went home after school, after graduating in the first class, Shield and Iron class number 1. On the way home, I stopped and had breakfast with my brother. And I hadn't done that since I was in the military. So, it has been a life of success, of meeting challenges, of being able to do things like this, of being able to enjoy Las Vegas. And I haven't had one bad experience. And I shook people's hands, and I just want to read to you some statements and observations that I made while I was here, and then we can go back to the celebration. But before I forget, I shook a lot of hands yesterday on the golf course, and I'm Mexican. We work our whole lives. we don't worry about dying from any kind of disease because we know we're going to work ourselves to death. That's the Mexican way. But I felt working people's hands in my hand when I shook these hands, and I understood that you know what hard work is, but it really just filled my heart with joy to understand that you know how to enjoy yourselves as well, and you also know how to help people like me. And for the first time in my life, I really, really understood what the words "thank you for your service" mean. And I can't thank you enough because you taught me what that means. So I only have a couple more things to do, and then we're going to go ahead and move on. But I just want to read to you, and this is something I wrote last night after the golf tournament, which was a real incredible experience for us. 3 times in my life, I have met people who said I made a difference in their lives. I met a lawyer from Kuwait in Spain. Her and her family fled during the liberation of Kuwait in a conflict named Desert Storm in 1991. She thanked me and said we saved her family. The same year, back in 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupted, and all American personnel and their families were evacuated from Clark Air Force Base, many on board the ship I was sailing on. Good. We keep each other safe. The USS Abraham Lincoln. I met a woman that was evacuated with her family when she was just a young girl. She told me we saved her life. Then she introduced me to her brother, who was being carried by her mom at the time as she was pregnant with him. So this girl and her family and her pregnant mom, we helped evacuate from the Philippines after the volcano erupted. Then she introduced me to her little brother. When the baby was born, they named him Abraham, after our ship. In Malaysia, I met a retired naval officer from the Malaysian Navy. He was a Hindu monk working in a temple in Setiawan. He said that we did a joint task force operation together with his ship in the Indian Ocean. He said it was the biggest warship he had ever seen in his life, and he would never forget it. My wife, or fiancée at the time, and I were so moved by this coincidence. Was it chance or was it fate? Either way, we knew we had to ask this priest to marry us immediately. Our friend Anand brought us back to reality by saying, "Oh no, Hindu weddings, they take all day." So far in my life, I have met 3 people that shared their experiences with my military service in the US Navy. I am a Desert Storm veteran. These people made me feel like a hero, like I made a difference in their lives. Today, I have the pleasure of addressing a room full of people that have made a difference in my life. A difference in the lives of many. You have given us the gift of sight, support, assistance, service, and you have given me back my freedom. From now on, when I come to these events, and some of you say thank you for your service, I have to remember that there's only one answer to that. Thank you for my service dog. So when I was at my worst, and I got the iPhone, and my niece, who was 19 years old in college at the time, was my iPhone tutor, and she taught me how to use it, and she taught me how, one of the first things she taught me to do was to take something called the selfie. Uncle Luis, send me a selfie, and all of them were of me in the house, in the dark. So as things started happening, I started sending her selfies of Shield and I out in public. So this one's for you, Julia. Uh-oh. From Shield and myself and my family and all the people that I'm blessed to know and love in this life, thank you so much for this. Thank you very, very much.